very much for giving me the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I was surprised as I made my way around the room earlier that, I knew there were a few links in this room, that Russ was related to Rich, but then as I was working the tables, I found out that Rich's brother is also here. And then I was told that one way or another, most of the people in Adams County at some point are probably somehow related. But when I was talking to Russ said, Surya, let me give you one piece of advice. Don't tell people that you're somehow distantly related to them. They may be able to figure it out. I said, Russ, how? I don't know. I don't think so. I think I can get away with it. And so if any of you know how you guys would all know that, please tell me afterwards. I'm still trying to figure it out. But seriously, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you. It's an honor, and I'm going to keep it simple. I know that we've got a great auction to get to with a lot of desserts that everybody probably wants to bid on, so I'll keep it short. I want to tell you a little bit about who I am, why I'm running, and what's at stake in this election in November, because I think that this election is as serious as any of the ones that we've seen in the past. There was a lot of hype and a lot of energy around '08 because it was such an important election, but I think this is equally as an important election because I think it's going to be part of one of a series of elections that define what America stands for. And I think that as I look at what America has stood for me, it stands for opportunity. And I know that when I look at my own life, it's an example of that. So I want to tell you a little bit about myself. My parents came to America from India about 40 years ago. They immigrated here. I was born in Norristown, Pennsylvania, so right over the border there. And both my parents, very blue collar. My mom, for example, worked at the post office. She woke up at midnight to sort mail, and she did that 6 nights a week. My dad did whatever jobs were available. And these weren't glamorous jobs. This wasn't a glamorous life that maybe they had envisioned. But they knew that if they worked hard, if they sacrificed, there'd be a better life available for their 2 sons. And so that's what they did. And watching my parents, I learned the value of hard work. And like many of you in this room, I've worked all my life. As a kid, shovel driveways, rake leaves, deliver newspapers. I'm sure a lot of people in here can relate to that. I was lucky enough when I was in high school to be going to high school at the very start of the internet, when that was first coming about. And so I started making websites for some local businesses. And eventually I started picking up the phone and calling a few companies around the country and showing them what I've done and giving them some prices. And I ended up having clients all over the country. I may not have told them that I was 15, but other than that, I think they were pretty happy. And I was able to build up a client base in California and Florida, Wisconsin, and I saved that money for college. When I got to college at Rutgers University, I studied finance and psychology. I worked full-time when I was at school to help pay my tuition. And I was happy to do that because my parents would sacrifice so much for me. Some of what they saved was able to turn into their retirement funds. And so I worked full-time for 2 years. The company I worked at, they paid my tuition, and I was thrilled at this arrangement. But the best thing that happened to me when I was at Rutgers was that I was able to get a job at Procter & Gamble, and it's what first brought me to Cincinnati. And so I came out here in 2001 and worked in marketing. And I ended up spending 5 years at P&G. I ended up being a brand manager. I worked on the Olay brand, and I know that some of you are probably looking up here and you're asking, is this guy even old enough to run for Congress? And I assure you I am. I used Olay. That was the brand that I worked on. And it does work. I'm well into my 60s. I can absolutely run. The product does work. I'm sure there's some Olay users in here. And I think I'm living proof of it for someone who's well into their 60s, and I know I look a lot younger than that. But it was during this time at P&G I also had another a great opportunity. I took 6 weeks off to get fired by Donald Trump on national TV. So if I look familiar to any of you, it's because I was on The Apprentice, and I was told by Donald Trump and his hair that I was fired. So if any of you have any questions about Donald Trump's hair or any of that, feel free to ask me afterwards. But after getting fired by Trump, I went back to P&G, worked there for another couple of years before I was recruited to join a company in Silicon Valley called LinkedIn, where I was their director of marketing. And for me, this was a big deal because growing up, first working on the internet, I had always dreamed of working in this space. And so now this had come true, and so many things that my parents had worked so hard for and that I had wanted for so long could come true. But at the same time, when I turned on the TV or would open the newspaper, you'd see in the headlines about bankers on Wall Street getting billions of dollars in a bailout while the family next door loses their home. You'd see stories about kids who had to drop out of college in order to help their family save their home or just to get by. And I thought, these aren't the same opportunities, these aren't the same conditions that I grew up in, that I benefited from. And so I quit my job and I'm living off savings to run for Congress because I know that only in America is my story possible. Only in America can someone at 15 start a company. Can you give your graduation speech at Rutgers? Can you be one of the youngest brand managers ever at P&G? And even get fired by Donald Trump on national TV. You know, no other country on earth can this happen from the son of two blue-collar laborers. I mean, in most other countries, people look at you a different way. They think you can only do certain type of things. But I realized that they sacrificed, and no one ever held against me my background or the conditions that I came from. And that's something that's unique to our country, and that's what makes it so great. And that's what I want to fight for. I mean, I want to fight for an America that works. And an America that works is what this election is all about. Because I think as we look around and we look in the newspapers, when we turn on the TV, we see so many examples of an America that's not working quite in the way it used to. That's not working quite so well. And I think that's what we need to get back on track. So let me tell you a few things about what I mean by that. One, an America that works means Americans that work. We need to get people back to work. And how we can do that is very simple. I mean, for decades, we as a country have let manufacturing jobs go overseas. We've almost, it seems, looked down on them. We've said, oh, if you work with your hands, that's below us. We're going to trade up the value chain. We're a knowledge economy. And now we see what that's given us as we've let these jobs go overseas. And we've been told these jobs had to go overseas because American labor is too expensive. Well, that's just not true. If you look at countries like Germany or Japan or South Korea, all of them have labor costs that are about the same as ours, except those countries are willing to fight for their workers, are willing to fight for those jobs. It used to be that when you went into a Walmart, you couldn't find anything made in America, and you were told that's okay because we're trading up the value chain. Now you go into a Best Buy, and you find me an electronic device that's made in America. You can't do it, but you can find things that are made in Germany. You can find things that are made in Japan. And that's why we need to get back to work, and we need to focus on these things. And with the right tax policy, with the right regulatory policy, and with the right government conditions, we can do that. These other countries have done that, and they've shown us the way. And we can't fix that overnight, but immediately we can put those policies into place, and we can set the foundation so when there is a recovery, on the news, I turn on the TV and I hear, oh, the economy's recovering, and yet I see that the unemployment rate, when you count people who have stopped looking for work, people who are underemployed, it's still over 16%. That's not a recovery. When you have almost 1 in 5 families, that one member of the family is looking for work, that's not a recovery. And so we need to get America back to work, and that's number one. But before we can do that, we need to have a Washington that works. You know, we see this right now off the Gulf in the oil spill. We learned that the regulators were letting the oil companies write their own safety reports, writing them in pencil. And the people who were supposed to be watching them are tracing over it and handing in the report. There was no plan for what would happen if there is one of these spills. I mean, this is emblematic of a Washington over the past few decades that hasn't been working for the people, that's been working for the corporate interests, the special interests, the lobbying groups. Here in the 2nd District, our Congresswoman has taken over $1.5 million in special interest money. And so they get their money's worth. When Wall Street needed a bailout, you know, the Congresswoman was there to give it to them, no questions asked. This past January, when financial regulation was up in Washington to make sure that that never happened again, that we could protect our taxpayers, she voted no. So yes for the bankers, no for the people. And this is what happens when you take $1.5 million in special interest money. And so we need a government that works in order to get people back to work. And the only way we can get any of those things, though, is if we all get involved. You know, just the fact that you're all in this room here means you're committed to the cause of working for a better America, working for a government that works. And so I know that with your help, we can do it. I think it can happen one house party at a time, one event at a time. There's 7 counties in this district, and I think right now we're working on winning Adams County. If 10 of you, for example, agree to host a house party, we can then win over independents, and we can start spreading the word throughout Adams County. So I think it starts here tonight. We can definitely do it. And so I'm here. This election is about fighting for an America that works. You'll hear that phrase a lot. You'll see it on the bumper stickers. You'll see it on yard signs probably come the fall. And I know that with your help, we can win that fight. So thank you very much for the audience. I appreciate the time, and I look forward to working with you to win in November. Thank you very much.